Let us start. I should ask a question to everyone watching. As you can see, there is a real board in front of you. We are going over a real board game or two, probably two. Don't think we're going over just the one. But does anybody recognize either of the players on stream? Do we recognize them? Hope we do. At least one of them. Maybe? Well, for those of you who are uncertain, Mr. Shin Jinseo is actually number one. He is currently top ranked above Mr. KG and Park Chung-won, which is a little bit sad. Park Chung-won was up at number one for a little while. Seems that he has fallen 5 points below Mr. KG. But Mr. Shin Jinseo right now is a whopping 17 points ahead of Mr. Cage. So he's doing pretty well. Mr. Shin Jinseo has been playing a lot of really good games lately. And if you do not believe it, you will be made a believer today, because we are going over one of them right now. As to his opponent, all I can tell you is he appears to be a Chinese professional 8-dan. So, in the game that we are going over today, Black opens up with the happy 4-4 points. White, as you usually see, is going to open up or not diagonally, but offering up the diagonal, inviting anything and everything, a sign of a true professional player. If his opponent wants to get into a diagonal opening, that is completely fine. Who cares? Let him do it. But, instead, we have Black declining. He declined White's very, very kind offer. Interesting move here. 3-4, okay. 4-4 and 3-4. It's cool, it's cool, it's cool. Hard to say what can come next. It can be almost anything. We can play on the right side and play like up maybe a Sanrin-sei. We could approach a corner, and if we are very, very, very good at our basics, then we know which of these corners we're more likely to approach, right? We could say, for example, that we're going to approach up in here and take this point for ourselves. We could, in fact, do something like that. But we usually prioritize the 3-4 over the 4-4, since even if we get enclosures with one or the other, one of these is much more easily reduced than the other one is, right? Both of these, one of these is much easier to reduce than the other. In other words, it's easier to make a territory with an enclosure on the 3-4 point than an enclosure based around the 4-4 point, right? Coupled to that is the fact that if we were to count lines from here to here, we have a greater number of lines on this side than we do on this side. So we tend to want to approach the largest area first, which is going to be this side and not this side. It's not dust at K7, it's a dent in the board. This is a dent. It's an old board. Got it from a place that doesn't even exist anymore, Samarkand, which was Janice Kim's online shopping website. That's how far back this board goes. Okay. All right. So now we have identified the largest point of the board. We are going to approach. Now, whether you approach high or low, it's completely up to you. If you approach high, for example, then maybe you're going to go for an influential game. We can see this idea particularly backed up by the fact that we've got a 4-4 here, and fourth is usually influence. We have a fourth line stone here, again, same thing, as opposed to, let's say, dual 3-4s, which would be more territorially inclined. So we've got two 4-4 points here, though I do want to point out 4-4 points don't necessarily indicate influence. It could also indicate territory. You actually don't know. It's kind of flexible nowadays. It's kind of flexible. Very, 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 very flexible. But with the approach of the fourth line approach here, well, now maybe we're thinking maybe he is actually leaning in a certain direction. We'll see. We'll see it. It depends in part by how white responds. So, white attaches, saying, "I like me my territories." Okay, that's cool. Cool, cool, cool. So we're gonna go and play Jinseki on here. Just like so. Now this next move is kind of interesting, because usually before we play the next move, back in ancient times, we would play it here instead, rather than to connect solidly. Connecting solidly and then trying to expand was thought to be a little bit heavy. That's kind of not really the case nowadays, which is odd. It's odd. Now it's okay to be heavy. So that's the way that's been changed. Only fear here, when we approach at this point, is maybe our opponent is going to try to do something like this one. But it's hard for this stone to really attack these three, because you essentially need 2 more moves here in order to fully surround it. And even if you get that, they're still Aji, right? So you can kind of see why in today's current meta that's focusing really on territory, that having an out like this is kind of interesting to take note of. So, alright. White is not a greedy pants. He's just gonna chill. Backs on off. At this stage of the game, I would anticipate backing off to here. And even though I still think this is completely fine, we do see something else instead of this stone right here being played. Can anyone guess what this next move is? I think everyone should get it. Every last person should get this. That is now very much meta. We are going to attach and see what we get out of here. So, we all know this Jinseki by now. We Hane. And at which point we counter Hane. Right? But white has an interesting move here. I would have thought that playing here into here wouldn't be that bad for white, because we're growing to an area that we can approach. This still needs an extend, and white has Sente, and I would have thought this would be, fine enough. Instead, white decides to play here. Now, this is a move I have not seen before. I have not seen this response to this Hane before. So, right away, that seems interesting to me. Isn't this heavy? Heavy for who? There, Mr. Jolly. Heavy for white? Heavy for white. Not really, because black could Atari here, but he can't really save it, right? Otherwise, we're going to see the Atari into a connect, into a greater wall here, and that seems completely fine. Instead, black plays here. Now white doesn't get to push that larger wall here. White might be able to play this one later, right? And it doesn't seem particularly heavy. Both sides are getting shape. It seems like a peaceful resolution. I find it interesting, and I think I'm not... Okay, so I never, ever advocate for those moves that you can play just to kind of trick up your opponent. But if you do play that, I'm fairly certain that your opponent's going to be tricked. Qs especially. Again, I'm not advocating trick plays, or anything that even might smell like a trick play. I'm just saying, if you Atari it, if you play this move here, there's a good chance your opponent is going to Atari you. Then when you connect, they're going to connect and allow you to get the free Atari into a larger wall. Just saying. Just saying. Just saying. Do let me know in the comments down below if by any chance you do experiment with that and that is what you're finding in your games. I'd be very interested to know. Okay, so white clearly wants to build. That was the idea behind this. So white extends. Very, very simple. The question is, what is black going to do in response? Offhand, I would anticipate a move something like this one, maybe. This one seems most natural to me. And the reason why that seems more natural is because we can play a move like this still and really try to grow the side. This seems good. But it should be noted that nowadays, meta really is all about kind of like grabbing those points and reducing potential. But more than that, we have an interesting opportunity here. Because remember, our early moves said that we were interested in influence, right? So we can kind of take all of these thoughts together and be like, okay, how do I get the influence and reduce his potential? How do I reduce his potential and get that influence? How do I do that? Because my opponent up there is kind of building like a bit of an influence for himself. So how do I get rid of that and build for myself? What do you guys think? Can you see it? Most obvious move in the history of ever. Give you a hint. It's forcing too. Now that it's forcing, I think I just let it out of the bag. I think everyone can see it. Instead, we're building off potential growth on the right, so that check marks that box. We're reducing white's easy ability of growing from this wall because of this low stone. So it check marks that box. And our group on the left is already okay. If we get to extend like somewhere, you know, up in here, that'd be fantastic. But for now, we could just kind of grow. And this is also why I picked this game for today. What happens here is interesting. White responds, because remember, even in our basic series, we learned that we respond to shoulder hits, we respond to caps, and third one, attachments. There we go. We respond to those three, right? So here we're responding to that. And now we grow. Now the fun thing about this is black has two follow-ups here, which is really cool. Black can play here in the future. And black can play here in the future. So that one itty-bitty stone, that one shoulder hit, has two continuations. Isn't that cool? One continuation builds the right. The right's ready to build because it's fourth line. One continuation builds the left. The left is ready to build because we played influentially there too. Now, obviously, white is not going to take this sitting down. He is a professional 8-dan. He sees growth when it's staring him in the face. So he's going to go, "No, sir, I ain't going to let you do that." And smack a stone down right there on that star point and just growl at his opponent. But black, being currently the strongest player in the world, he's not going to be distracted because he was trying to do two things at once, mind you. He was threatening to grow one area, or he was threatening to grow the other area. Since white is reducing 1, that means we're going to go for the other. Whew. Ain't that cool? Now, obviously, white is going to have a notice me senpai moment because that little start point is also a pincer. So we're going to follow it up, put pressure on the 2, but like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of tough to really hurt this stone. The pincer here does only one thing. Drive the group into the center of the board. From here, I think everyone can kind of expect which way this game is going to go. This is going to be a bit of a cosmic game, so all of you folks who like Cosmic Go, like influence-oriented stuff, and just seeing crazy things trying to be obtained in the middle, you're going to fall in love with this game from here on out. Especially, again, in today's meta, which is all about the points, all about the invasions, right? Now, oh man, oh man, oh man. So, yeah, fun thing here. If, hypothetically, just hypothetically say, knowing what you know about today's meta, what would you predict for white's next move? Don't think about how crazy it is on this board to do it. What would you anticipate here? The 3-3. Uh-huh. Yup. White responds calmly and rationally by invading the corner. Whew. Okay, now that right there is a gauntlet right across the face. It's like, you're going for influence? I'm going to give you so much influence, you're going to choke on it. Because that ain't how we're supposed to play, man. Don't know if you got the memo, Pops, but we're playing a new style today. So, okay. And in we go. Now, we don't, again, because this often tends to result in either long-winded Jiseki or just like Gote stuff into a build which can be invaded. I talk about this briefly in the game that I had reviewed by the Professional Eitan. We talked about which way to block on here, so you can review that if necessary. We instead see a block this way. It's like, okay, so how is this going to turn out? Well, there are 2 reasons to block this way. One, because you're going to like approach or do something else from here. Because you don't want to be confined to one side, which can be invaded. Or because you're picking a Jiseki that you know the outcome of what you're about to get. And sadly, this one falls into the Jiseki one. He blocks this way. Because he knows which way he can force his opponent to play. And right now it is this way, as you can see here. We get the Hane in place. We get the other Hane in place. And then we cut. Now, from here, white does have an option. White could resist this Jiseki and Atari that 1 stone. Unfortunately, if you Atari that 1 stone, you are giving more influence to your opponent where your opponent wants all of that influence. Okay? So, instead, white plays Atari. And we see this normal exchange. 1 second. You, right? Yes. Grab some extra stones. Make my life easier. Okay. White just captured. So now we Atari. And wait. Am I doing this right? Yeah, I am. And we fill. And now from here, in and of itself, this looks weird, right? It's like, oh my god, why would you ever want this position for yourself? Like, look, like, ew, just ew. But the problem is your opponent can't really hold you on that first and second line. Because you have to Atari, which allows your opponent to Atari, which forces us to connect. And hello, Baduk Bum. So we connect like so. And then this is something we're seeing a little bit nowadays. There are some complicated variations here. You'll be happy to know that we don't really see too many of them. Instead, we see black offer up an exchange. You can Atari me back and force me to capture the stone and fill in exchange for the influence. Right? White decides to get a little bit complicated and threaten to save the cutting stone. Little bit, just a little bit complicated. Forcing black to capture. White takes the opportunity to come out. Black takes. And then white says, I still have Aji. Right? So, the idea here is maybe we can attack the outside black stones. Maybe this influence isn't really as influential as it appears. Right? That's the idea behind saving those stones. Obviously, we don't want to be surrounded, so jumps away. Same. Same. Don't want to see a black stone here, for example, because then that Hane would kind of work. And then we'd get kind of sad because our stones would be kind of dead in the upper left. Unless we really, really backed off here and just took the surround, like, boop, right on the nose. But then why did we do this anyway if we're giving more influence to our opponent, right? So we go there. Black plays yet another move against those 3 stones. And white says, that's good enough for now. And just finishes settling. Okay. Cool. Since we are under attack, black, what I've noticed from Shin Jinseo's play, especially lately, is he's ridiculously solid. Some players right now would be like, you know what? I don't think my opponent can probably kill me. And you might be right. Maybe even at a professional level, this still doesn't die. Despite the fact that right now, if we play away from black, there's the Atari, into poke, into Hane, right? But that's goat taste, so we can still run away. Like we Atari, we connect. We get poked, we connect. He Hane, and then we probably jump away. But that's a weak group that's running away. And that's not something that Shin Jinseo is going to be like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Especially when you're playing influence games, you don't want this kind of thing to happen. Because your opponent chases you, and any influence that you thought you were going to get vanishes. You've seen this in my basics a lot, I would imagine. I love chasing people into their own moyo, and then just like watching it disappear, right? So after, whoops, hold up. I feel like I've gone too far. I have. It's this one that's off. There you go, that makes more sense. So after this move is on the field, Black's like, you know what you're not going to do to me? You're just not going to chase me across the board, because that would be crazy. So he Ataris. Rather than be tempted into taking like that larger point elsewhere, he just settles. Right? Just settles. Not going to be chased all throughout wherever. He's just going to settle. White gets another move. Oh, White gets another move. Where would White take Sensei now? Any ideas? I'm kind of giving it away. The 3-3. How'd you know? How'd you know? Was the giggling giving it away? Was the giggling giving it away? I bet it was. I bet it was. Here we go with more here we go with more territory, you know, stealing. It's cool. It's cool. 3-3's open, so why not? Here we're blocking because we're so clearly interested in that area. Shu deserves to lose. Deja voodoo. Wow, I have so many more. I have so many more black or white stones in my hand than black stones right now. So all right. We're just giving away the influence again. Now, obviously, Black is not about to do the same variation on the bottom right here as he did in the upper right. Especially since we could anticipate from that variation White coming out in this area. That would be a very, very bad variation to do. Right, we don't want to do that variation. That wouldn't be good. Instead, Black takes Sente here. And the moves are actually pretty straightforward. Right now, he's just seeing what other areas of influence he can obtain for himself. What can he do? What can he do? How can he keep building that middle up that Black seems completely bent on force feeding him? Right? Pokey, pokey, poke. Okay. Okay. Ask if he can go through. Is denied. Note that he played down here and he didn't just play Puppy Go and take this point away, because then that would leave the Hane as potential forcing move, because it would leave the Atari into a connect. So you don't want to do that. Alright, there we go. That's a statement. That right there is a statement if I've ever seen one. Black just said you can take all of your territory and you can go shove it somewhere dark. I'm going for that middle. You want me in the center. I'm going to develop the center. That's all there is to it. That said, before we continue this game, I do want to point out one minor thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, arguably 6. Right? Which means that makes 7. That makes 7 groups on this board of whites. Now, I'm pretty sure there are proverbs regarding that kind of thing, right? And remember, this isn't like some punk on Fox. This isn't some punk on Fox. This is a professional 8-dan. So, okay, let's see where this is going. Oh. Music I'm listening to in the background just hit very sad Final Fantasy VII music as I was talking about that. That's kind of funny. Atari. I went over that without speaking, sorry. The reason why we didn't extend this stone yet is because this would be huge, right? And then this turns into like a very, very tiny area. We don't like that. We don't like this, because now black's getting more influence here to go with the influence like up there. So the push is expected. And then we take the extend away, because it's a huge point to get for white. Normally, I know I say we don't Atari cutting stones, but there are certain situations in which we do. No, we are not giving these stones up. We're just going to get into a little bit of a pushing battle here. Now this, I think we should probably talk about for a little while, because this kind of thing happens a lot. So if we hit Hane now, that is easy to read, right? That's just an Atari and we die. So we can't Hane here. Okay. The question is, can we Hane here now? If we Hane, we've got this cut, right? And that's a little awkward, because we can't capture, right? So we'd have to do this. Okay, let's do the obvious one first. We could do this one. But we're going to talk about this one later. The reason why we're not going to do this one is because we have to connect here regardless, right? And at that point, we've run into an issue. Can these black stones not die? Is there a way for them to live? I think you would agree probably not, right? So let's go back to that other variation for a minute. This one. If we Atari this down, and then play here, what we just did is seal off our opponent from escaping. Sorry. I meant this one. Right? Because we're forcing a capture. In exchange for 3 stones, we've sealed the middle of the board. Take. And then a solid connection across the entire way. That's pretty bad for white. So yeah, we don't do this one. So instead of this, and the cut, yeah. Instead of that, he Hanes. Not because he can't kill the stones if he cuts, but because if he kills the stones by cutting here, he's very, very likely going to lose the game. So those of you greedy people who are like, oh yeah, man, can we cut now? Can we cut now? You gotta always have the larger board in mind. Yes, you can. You probably can kill, and then you'll resign. So we extend out, but it's also a very terrible burden placed on this white group. A very terrible burden. This group here has to reduce the middle of the board now. Now we've got a bamboo joint. Okay. I confess, I'd be a little bit scared. Little scared here, little scared. Oh, by the way, right now, unless this connects up to these 3 stones, bear in mind this makes 8. Right? Unless these 3 stones connect up to those ones over there, this makes 8. Oops. Don't play twice. Okay, there we go. Looks pretty straightforward. We have a lot of liberties. Gotten ourselves some eyes. White seems to be trying to kill us. That's rude. So rude. Absolutely rude. See how rude he is? Tari. Connect. Those of you who are smarty pants can already see where this is going, right? You can see why black is fine. We've got essentially Mii right now. We can take the 1 stone, or we can kind of clamp up here, or maybe even just like surround and kill off this little dude. So we're not in dire straits yet. Tries to connect up the stones. Tries to connect up them stones. We see Mii here still. So black goes back to surround. Because rumor has it, there was a group in the middle of this board that hasn't lived yet. Remember that group? Yeah, it's this little guy over here. Where's his eyes? Where's his eyes? He doesn't have any yet. Well, I guess he's got like 0.5 eye, right? He's got like this one in Gote and like that one too. So he's getting close. He's getting close. White is desperate, B is greedy. Is B really greedy though? How is B greedy? B just seems like he's pretty solid. He's just like, my dude, you're trying to get away with a lot. You're just trying to get away with a lot. Can you really get away with everything you're trying to do? So white connected up, which means we're back down to 7 groups and not, 8. Good for him. Defend. Separation. Just like so. Now again, we can't kill this group by connecting here because the side's going to die, so we need to do something about that. Same thing here. Threatening a complete surround on the group. White asks, "Are you alive?" And black says, "Ditto." Are you alive, sir? Rumor has it you are not alive right now. Throws in to kill. Completely surrounds. Asks if he can leave. Okay, that made that a little bit tougher. White's not allowed to escape. you. And wiggling out. And take. That take there is really important in the life and death status of Black's group, because now White has to retake, fill, extend, remove, 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 remove. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. There's a lot of liberties in order to kill this. But, more importantly, one crucial fact has been overlooked. That aren't alive. And we got a bunch of liberties. So, here's White trying not to be dead. This allows for the cut. In that case, White is alive, or Black is alive, sorry. Doesn't have enough liberty, so we can't connect. Which means the life and death status of this group and its liberties is now moot because those white stones have now been killed off. Which means both groups, again, in the middle of the board, need to be not dead. White Atari. Black says, all I need to do is settle now. This is no longer a terribly interesting co. Comes out. This coming out is threatening to kill, threatening to attack the middle again. And surround. White connects just to be alive. And then once again, Black is going back for that influence-oriented strategy to attack the center of the board. By making his stones really, really strong, by leaning on this group is already strong. Now we're getting places. Push. Got bad news for you. Atari. Into extend. Well, that's interesting, because now we've got another group on our hands. Can these two connect, is now the wonderful question. And can this group live? Well, that right there threatens life immediately, because we've got the Atari on top, and that threatens an eye shape. Going in for the cut. The Atari is now deliciously sente. But the turn is now sente because of that one stone. Otherwise, the 5 stones on top here are dead, right? So White plays Hane. Missed the move there? Wait, what? What move did I miss? Huh? M7. What is M7? After N6? N6, sorry. After that... No. Does extend first. My bad. My bad. Then we have there. Into there. Into the Atari. Into the connect. Into the turn. into the Hane. There we go. Connects into the extend, and now that's alive. So that's cool, right? And unfortunately, now white has to live. So he says, I live by attacking you. Good choice, good choice. Black chooses not to be surrounded. White extends back, threatening to cut through. So, well, black doesn't let the cut through happen. Painful move to have to play. This is now threatening. He has to connect, sorry. But this is not Sente to respond to. So he can't really save those stones right now. Therefore, he has to go do other things. Pokes. And drops down. But that gives black time to ask questions about this group again. White confidently says that he is fine. And maybe he is. Maybe he is. It is entirely possible. Turns. Everything is on fire. This game is very hot, don't you think? Black connects up, so he's alive. White is still making shape. Black says, no more shape, you are completely surrounded, make 2 eyes. So now we look for eyes. Can I kill this 1 stone? Hane's on this side, because if he connects, he's threatening the cut, which is really fantastic. So when we see this, we get to see this, which is directly threatening the cutting point. White plays the Hane, and black can completely ignore. Bear in mind that these stones are dead, so this group being cut off doesn't really matter very much. Connect. More dead stones. Atari. Connection. This move is important because we can Atari, connect, and then throw in, and we're in trouble. So we have to get rid of those stones like so. And then white manages to live. Excellent. All right. That's good, right? So now it's just some housekeeping things. We Hane here. Push him on back. Make handy dandy little shape here. Now we're getting poked. Black sacrifices. Those 2 points will have to be taken off the board in the future. Nickton. White pokes. Black does as well. Yep, that is true. It did live at a cost. Alright, Atari. And then connect. And honey. At this point, though, I'd like to take a moment to appreciate how many groups are living very, very tiny right now. Like, this corner and this corner, I think, is essentially White's largest amount of territory. Because this had to live very, very tiny. This had to live very, very tiny. We lost a couple of stones. This group is living extremely tiny. We don't know what's going on with this one yet because it can still be poked at, but it's probably going to live tiny as well. It's a lot of tiny stuff. Poke. Connect. Let's go ahead and try to live here. And reduce. And reduce. And extend. And Atari. And throw in. White. Ah, white. There we go. And threaten. And murder. Ah, white stone. Atari. Connection, no weird co. Ever happening here. Cuts off. Extends. Black takes. Or white takes, sorry. Black retakes. And, B can't even honor co. No. So another one bites the dust. Okay, so now into the middle. Making sure we're nice and alive. No weird any kind of shenanigans or whatever. Can we do something in here? Black immediately says, no, I'm alive completely. White says, are you really? Black says, yeah, really. White says, I don't believe you. So we push. And cut. And Atari. And at that point, White decides he's had just about as much of this game as he can stand. And resigns. White does. Black wins by resignation. Even without the additional blood at the top, I had Black up by 10 or so. Yeah, more than enough for a professional. Yeah, without the top, I mean, that's like saying you live in a world without spice. Needed some extra, you know, just to make it pop. But yes, poor White, poor White. Black was merciless. Though to be fair, as eloquently stated earlier on in the game, White really deserved it. I mean, at one point, he was trying to have 8 disconnected groups running around on the board. Right? Like, oh, yeah. But there is an important there is an important lesson to be learned here. Many of you get frustrated when your opponents create a whole bunch of different groups and just run around and try to live everywhere. You ask yourself, where do they get it from? They get it from professionals, I'm afraid to say. So there you go. On the flip side, if you are this kind of player, then, I mean, even pros do it, so you're in good company, you know? You're in good company. Keep at it.